Hello, I'm Michael Harkey, and I'd like to introduce a movie from the Infotex Awareness Training Series, Asking Out-of-Wallet Questions. Without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, Dan Hadaway, Managing Partner of Infotex. Dan?
Thank you very much, Michael. And I would like to just invite everybody to the notion that we have some work to do when it comes to learning a control that only we can exercise. We need to learn how to ask what the regulators call out-of-wallet questions. And so our agenda today is we're just going to start right off the bat. Why do we need to ask out-of-wallet questions? Then we'll try to define what we mean by out-of-wallet questions. And then we're going to try to arm you with, here's how we would go about asking out-of-wallet questions if we were in your shoes. And we'll end with some role playing so that you can see actually how it shouldn't work. And then we'll also do some role playing to show you how asking out of questions will hopefully work in your organization. So back in the year 2011, a new guidance came out that your information security officer, had to get his or her arms around. And part of that guidance required the use of out-of-wallet questions to authenticate phone callers. And the reason why is because what the federal government, who writes these guidances was noticing is that pretext calling, or the act of calling a financial institution and asking for information that the person should not be getting, was starting to rise as a valid social engineering attack vector. And so what's happening now is that bad guys, as well as our customers, are calling the bank or the credit union on a regular basis and asking for information that they shouldn't have unless we've confirmed that they actually are who they say they are. And so just to make sure we, help you understand what pretext calling is that it is somebody calling under a false identity. And that person is trying to really commit a fraud. They might be trying to get, the balance on a divorce litigant, or they might be trying to, get information that they can use in an orchestrated attack against your bank, or worse, against one of your customers. As a matter of fact, there's really three types of people that are calling your bank right now. There's the legitimate callers, our customers, vendors, our family members, etc. And then there are the threats. One is kind of a low impact threat, meaning that, if we do make a mistake and we give out a balance to a nosy neighbor, it stinks because we've just breached somebody's privacy, but at least it's contained to only one person. What we're also frightened about, though, is that we're noticing that if the bank is part of what's called an orchestrated attack, where a professional criminal or a crime organization has decided to target the bank, pretext calling is one of the first things they will do to gain information about the bank. What type of systems the bank is using? Are the bank employees well trained? Can I get a balance from the bank easily? If so, that's an indication to me that I might be able to raise the priority of this bank when it comes to the radar in terms of who I'm going to try to attack with the many different tools I can use now that are designed to attack American banks and credit unions. And as an example, these print screens are from 2006, by the way. And so I want to make sure you realize that this is an old, attack vector. It's a tool called Zeus that's still available. It's substantially modernized. There's various modules that are built in. And one of those modules, by the way, is a database that people are populating by calling banks and credit unions and asking them questions for which the answer should not be provided unless we confirm they are who they say they are. And if we zoom in on this, I just want to point out what's kind of interesting about Zeus is that the actual application is in English, but if you need help, you're going to have to learn how to speak and read Russian, because this particular application was published by the Russian Business Network, a crime organization that is very good at what they do, and they are helping people target American banks and credit unions. And so how do we thwart pretext calls? Well, that's the reason you're watching this movie, is because we need to ask what the federal government calls out-of-wallet questions. We all used to call them out-of-pocket questions until that 2011 guidance called them out-of-wallet questions. And so what do we mean by out-of-wallet questions? Well, it's a question that asks for information that we have on our customers in our computer systems usually that can't be found in a wallet or purse or on social media. And so what we mean by that is that if we can, ask somebody with a deposit account the amount of a recurring deposit or where a recurring deposit's coming from, or maybe the amount of the last deposit if there are no recurring deposits, that's information that's rather hard for somebody from, Czechoslovakia or North Korea to gather on us by, finding, a stolen wallet or purse, or by, analyzing social media. If, we're really trying to, be on guard, we need to recognize that information that can be found in a wallet, purse, or on social media includes that mother's maiden name. It used to be mother's maiden name was a nice identifier. It's why we got in the habit of asking it. Some of our computer programs, some of our teller systems actually will give us the ability to capture and hold the mother's maiden name. And I believe that the mother's maiden name is a good question to ask, as long as we're also asking an out-of-wallet question, because the mother's maiden name is not an out-of-wallet question. It's something that can be easily found on social media now, and so somebody from outside of our country or a bad guy or, et cetera, can easily guess the mother's maiden name by looking at social media. Not to mention the fact that a divorce litigant already knows the mother's maiden name. Our nosy neighbor might already know the mother's maiden name, et cetera. Likewise, account numbers on the check. So, if we lost our wallet or our purse, we might have checks in there. Likewise, some people are still keeping their Social Security card, in their wallet or purse. But more importantly, you can get Social Security number off the dark web pretty easily. And if it's an orchestrated attack, you might already have that information. That might be why the bank is on the bad guy's radar. And then finally, of course, you can go online and Google anybody's address or phone number nowadays. So these are questions that you should, you can ask. I mean, obviously, we've got to start off with the account number just so we can bring the customer up to see what kind of out-of-wallet questions we can ask. So I'm not saying you shouldn't ask these questions. I'm just saying that you have not asked an out-of-wallet question if you're asking for this information. Likewise, if you ask what day of the week is your recurring deposit, you're kind of giving the bad guy 1 in 7 chance of guessing the answer. And really, it's a lot more of a probability of that, because most of us are going to say Friday, because that's when everybody gets paid, right? And so that's not a good out-of-wallet question. Likewise, any yes/no questions or questions with only 2 answers, 50% is good odds. So try to stay away from those kind of questions. And just keep in mind that most of us have more than one branch. So if the caller fails to get the right question with us, they might go to a different branch and try to ask the question there, or call back later and try to get a different person at your branch. So, if you're asking a question with "I think so," or if somebody's answering a question with "I think so," that's another example of a bad out-of-wallet question. So how do we ask out-of-wallet questions then? Well, first, what we've found, what we've seen in our own business is that you should start with 3 little words for your protection. You don't have to use those 3 words, but you need to start with the notion that what I'm going to do is for your protection. What we see happening is that if you start with "for your protection," the customer automatically starts cooperating with you instead of wondering what the heck, this has never happened before, especially if your bank's been failing pretext calling tests. That obviously means that maybe not everybody's used to being asked out-of-wallet questions when they call asking for balances or whatever. But you're going to need to work with the customer to try to find the right question. And you can enlist the help of your customer. You can explain politely, our procedure is to ask a question where we can't find the answer in a wallet, a purse, or on social media. And the customer might say, well, I have several loans with you, and then you can, look for good questions if they're a loan customer or whatever. But ultimately, you need to determine by looking at your computer screen what question is the best question. And the other ultimately is you need to do that without giving your caller any information. So let's just kind of talk about the do's and don'ts. Do try to slow down and recognize that, hey, this is an important policy. There's real reasons we have this in place. There's real risk here. And so, especially at first, we're going to have to learn how to ask out-of-wallet questions. That's why we suggest maybe a role play. But then meanwhile, we see so many people just ignore the starting with the 3 little words, and then they wonder why the customer's upset after they've gotten into the details of the out-of-wallet questions. We need to make sure the customer understands it's for their protection. And then the customer is going to need to gather their thoughts. Very often they're busy. Very often they're in the middle of the situation. That's why they need the balance. And so we need to help them gather their thoughts. And then we just need to remember that our job is to politely explain our procedures and then follow those procedures. What we should not do is allow the caller to talk us out of the policy. If the caller's 100 years old and have been doing business with the credit union since the day, their father bought them the, savings, bond when they were 5 years old, 95 years is a lot of history that we want to protect. And it's for your protection that we need these questions answered before we can release the information. They're going to get frustrated, at least at first. And don't take that personally. They're busy people, and you have to follow policy. Don't offer any question to the caller, or don't offer any information to the caller. You have to be careful with that. And you need to get used to saying, I'm sorry, but I cannot provide that information until we've verified your identity. If you have somebody that's starting to shoot questions at you, keep in mind that legitimate customers will say, well, what kind of loan do I have there? What can I do? What phone number can you call me at, or whatever? But more often, the bad guys try to confuse you. And the people that shouldn't have the information are not worried about the relationship that the person whose identity they're trying to steal has with the bank. And so they might go very rude on you. And that should just help you feel more comfortable with the fact that this is why you should follow policy and procedures. But there's going to be a lot of times, hopefully not a lot, after our customers get used to this, but there will be times where we simply can't arrive at the right question to ask the question or ask the customer. And in those cases, we do have 2 last resort responses that we want you to keep in your arsenal and know that it is policy you must implement. The first one is to offer to call the customer back at the phone number that you have filed on your computer. A bad guy might say, well, I'm at this number, call me here. No, we need to call them at a phone number that's in our computer system. A bad guy might say, oh, and what number is that? What number do you have? We can't tell them what number we have in our phone system without confirming their identity. Now, keep in mind, they're going to go, look them up and try to call the next branch, but that's why we all need to ask the out-of-wallet questions. There very often might be times where we don't have the right phone number in our system, or where they happen to be in a cell-free zone, or whatever, or out of the country and they aren't using their cell phone, or who knows. But that's because they are not used to having to answer out-of-wallet questions, and therefore we have to go with last resort number 2, which is to politely suggest the customer come into the branch to identify themselves. Now, you'll need to ask your supervisor. Some institutions want you to implement last resort number 1 and last resort number 2, and if the customer is complaining still, then escalate to the branch manager or whoever would be the next person in line to escalate to. Some organizations would rather you try last resort number 1 and then escalate to the supervisor and allow the supervisor to implement last resort number 2. It all depends on your branch. You want to make sure your supervisor and you have that worked out. What I'd like to do now then is to introduce the people that we're going to do some role playing with. And first of all, what we've done is we've invited one of our pretext callers. Her name is Stacy. Say hi, Stacy.
Hello.
And Stacy is a person that works for Infotext, the makers of this movie. And what she does for her job is she calls our clients as part of an audit or as part of what we call ongoing pretext calling, where we'll call our clients on an all year round basis. And she asks for information that you should not be giving her. She's mimicking an attack. And then we, take the results to our clients and help them learn how to ask out of wallet questions. I'm also, though, very proud if you watch or if you get like the Ohio Record or Who's Your Banker magazine or one of the local banking trade magazines here, you might recognize the next person that we're going to be using. He's very, very good at all of our information security controls that we suggest. But we've been running this ad campaign about Joe ISO, and so it's kind of a
Dan.
for
Hey, Dan.
Joe to come and join us today.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, Joe can't help with this because he's not real.
He's not real?
Yeah, can't help with this one.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I mean, that makes sense. I knew that I always drew him as I think I might have been pretext called. So, okay, well, hey, for at least for the sake of this movie, then let's just go ahead and Mike, is Matt Jolly in the audience?
He sure is.
Hey, did somebody say my name?
Hey, Matt, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
You got anything going on?
Well, I kind of have my breakfast laid out here, and I was gonna kind of get into that while I was listening along to the webinar.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I appreciate you coming to the webinar, by the way. And by the way, just so you know, I still owe you that lunch. Matter of fact,
awesome.
maybe we can go out to lunch sometime this week.
Hey, that works out for me.
But hey, I was wondering, we need to do some role playing here, and so I was wondering, would you mind kind of playing the part of a teller in a bank?
Oh, well, my breakfast might get cold, and I was really
That is great, Matt. I love it. The one thing I love about Matt, here's a guy who's going places, by the way, because he always volunteers for pretty much everything we ask him to volunteer for. And so, Matt, we're going to, you got to put on your teller hat, okay?
All righty.
I want you to play the part of a teller in kind of a scenario, role-playing thing here, okay? And just so you know, since Matt always volunteers, we do have his picture ready. This is Matt here. And so Matt and Stacy will be doing our pretext calling role-playing here. I would also like to say that the way we've set this up is that Stacy's going to play two different characters. For the first three calls, she's going to kind of play the part of a bad guy. And then for the last two calls, she's going to play the part of a real customer. And the reason for this is because we want to make sure that people, by the way, there's the part of the bad guy, we call her Scary Stacy. I mean, think about it. We work with somebody who's makes a living by lying. But the first three scenes are going to kind of demonstrate, how not to ask out of wallet questions. And then the last two scenes, Stacy will be playing the real Stacy, where we demonstrate how we feel a real pretext call should go. Or actually not a real pretext call, a real call with a real customer should go. So I feel like, just so you know, this might be one of those takes where I feel like we need to redo that. So I'm going to pause by about 5 seconds. Sorry about that. Okay, make that 2 seconds. So Stacy is actually going to play the part of two different callers. For the first three scenes, Stacy's playing the part of Scary Stacy. We're all kind of a little bit weirded out about the fact that we have somebody we work with that's so good at lying. But then for the last two calls, Stacy will play a real customer. And the reason why is for the first three scenes, we want you to see, what it looks like when we're not asking out of wallet questions. And then the last two scenes is when Matt will be asking the right out of wallet questions. And so the other thing to know is whenever we use a fake bank at Infotex, we use the First Bank of Nowhere. And so we're going to be pretending like Matt works at the First Bank of Nowhere. And then we just want Matt and Stacy to read these scenes. And this is really as simple as it can be. Again, I wouldn't want you to read scenes 1 through 3 because this is how not to ask out of wallet questions. But once we get to scene 4 and 5, I think you'll see what I mean. So Stacy, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Stacy calls the First Bank of Nowhere.
Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, Mr. Speaking. I need the balance on my checking account.
I'd love to be able to help you with that. Can I get your name and account number?
Sure. My name is Stacy Hadaway, and my account number is 11223344.
Awesome. And can you give me your mother's maiden name?
Yes, my mother's maiden name is Cooper.
Alrighty. It is showing here that your balance is $2,352.27.
Awesome. So that's $2,352.27?
That's correct.
Great. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Matt. Were you listening to the beginning of our webinar here?
Well, I thought I was paying pretty good attention.
Well, what do you think was wrong with maybe this scene here?
Now that I'm looking over it a second time, I'm guessing that the mother's maiden name is not a very good question to ask.
I agree with you there, Matt. And Stacy, why is that?
Because I can easily find the mother's maiden name through social media.
And do you do that very often when you're pretext calling?
Yes, I do. Yes.
What would you say? I mean, about how many times do you believe people rely solely on the mother's maiden name when it comes to the failed pretext calls?
I would say that happens quite often. I would say about 60% of the time. Okay,
and so sometimes they're asking for mother's maiden name, but then they ask an additional out-of-wallet question. But what I'm hearing you say is that 6 out of every 10 times somebody fails, they're relying on the mother's maiden name.
Yeah, usually.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
wow.
Yeah.
So let's see here. What do you think Stacy looks like after this call? Yep. That's what I was afraid of. We do not want people doing this after they call our organization, okay? And if we do, then then this is kind of the way Matt looks after we. So who won this, Mike? Well, Mike's not paying attention apparently, but
sorry, I was muted. I say Stacy won.
Yeah, you're muted. Yeah, obviously Stacy won. We'll take that who won this part out of the movie, Sophia. But yeah, let's try it again. So, who won this one, Mike?
I'd say Stacy won.
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, there's winners and losers when it comes to pretext calling tests. And yeah, we've got Stacy, just ready to high five somebody, and Matt's kind of looking a little bit sick about what he did. Let's go ahead and try a next scene here. And scene 2 stretches 2 different slides here, so I'll try to move the slide when it's time. But Stacy, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Go ahead and give her a start.
Okay, great. Stacy calls the First Bank of Nowhere.
Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hello, Mr. Speaking. I need a balance on my checking account.
Sure. Can I get the number on that account, please?
Yeah, my account number is 123456.
Okay. And can I also get your social security number, please?
Yeah, it's 213-54-89-62.
Are you sure that it's not 555-125212?
Can you say that again?
We are showing your social security number as 555-125212.
No. And the last time I called, you guys said you guys still had the wrong social security number on file.
Oh, well, I do apologize for that, and I'll be happy to give you your account balance here. It looks like it is $1,240.59. Additionally, I can update that number for you. What was it again?
Okay. Well, first, my account balance is $1,240.59.
That is correct.
Okay, great. All right. So my social security number is 213-54-8666.
Okay, I've got that down. I will update that later. Thanks for getting a hold of us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Goodbye.
Oh my goodness. Stacy, does this actually ever happen in real pretext calling?
Yes, this has actually happened a few times.
Wow. And so I imagine what you had to do then is call back and talk to whoever we're working with at the audit.
Yes, yeah, I definitely call them right back.
And so what happened here, Matt?
Well, I tried to verify their identity and they gave me the incorrect information, and then I turned around and gave out the information anyways.
Yeah, and then he also gave them the right social security number.
And then I updated our system with the number that they gave me.
And so now when Stacy calls back, she's going to have to decide which social security number to provide.
Oh yeah, it could get confusing.
I wonder what Stacy looks like after a call like this. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Kind of arrogant, if you ask me. Yeah. Matt, if you don't start learning how to ask out of wallet questions, boy, the customers are going to start wondering about us, right?
Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
Well, let's say that somebody taught you how to ask out of wallet questions. Let's try the next scene. Stacy, it's another one that's a two-parter.
Okay. Stacy calls the First Bank of Nowhere.
Thank you for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, Matt speaking. I need the balance on my checking account.
Sure thing. Can I get your account number, please?
Yeah, it's 123-45678.
Okay. Let's see. Could you tell me the date of your last deposit?
Yeah, it was last Friday.
Okay, and about how much was that deposit for?
I don't know. My husband reconciles our account. I'm just making sure we don't overdraft anything.
Oh, well, you don't have to worry about that. I think your account is fine. The balance right now is $685.12.
Okay, so the balance is $685.12.
That is correct.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
No problem. Have a nice day.
Thanks, you too.
Oh my goodness. Matt, what happened here?
Well, I made another attempt. I asked a question and they got part of it right, but honestly, I think that somebody could have probably guessed that the last deposit was going to be on a Friday, and they'd have a decent chance of that being true.
Well, and that's why I see you asked the follow-up question. That was good, but Stacy, do you ever have this happen when you're pretext calling financial institutions where, you know, they ask the right questions, you don't give them the right answer, and they go ahead and give you the balance anyway?
Yes, this happens a lot.
Wow. And so what is it? Is it, Matt, are you worried about being rude?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't want an angry customer to call back maybe and then complain to my boss that I was rude to them, and uh, I just want to make them happy and then get on with the next customer.
Well, I get that, but what we need to remember is that your job is not to be polite as much as it is to politely explain our procedures and then follow those procedures. So what I'd like to make sure everybody in the audience knows is that we're now going to switch to a new scenario. But before we do, I guess we got to let Stacy celebrate a little bit there. And Matt, you know, you got to start following policy. I mean, now you're demonstrating that you know the policy, but you're not following it. That must look really terrible in the pretext calling journals when people do that. But I get it. They're wanting to be polite. But let's show people what it looks like when we politely follow procedures with our scene 4. And so everybody remember, now Stacy isn't scary Stacy. Stacy's a real customer calling the First Bank of Nowhere. Stacy?
Okay. Stacy calls the First Bank of Nowhere.
Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, I need the balance on my checking account.
Oh, sure. I'd love to help you with that. But first, for your protection, I'm going to need to ask you a few questions just to verify who I'm speaking with. Could I get your account number, please?
Yeah, it's 1234567.
Okay. And when was the date of your last deposit?
It was last Friday.
Okay. And could you tell me about how much that deposit was for?
I don't know. My husband reconciles our account. I just want to make sure that we don't overdraft anything.
Okay, no problem. Could you tell me where the deposit came from at least?
Yeah, it came from Acme Corporation.
Okay. Just one last thing. I see that you recently wrote a check for more than $1,000. Could you tell me who that check was written to?
Are you talking about the $1,200 check written to Mary Maid?
Yes, I am. And thank you for verifying your identity with us. And I can now tell you that your balance is $23.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Well, how about that? Matt, do you feel like you were being rude?
No, I think that once I let him know that I was doing this to protect their information, that it really helped.
Yeah, I feel like the 3 little words for your protection really go a long way to establish, you know, what you're going to be doing. I wonder, you know, I feel like after that one, Matt probably, yeah, that's what I thought. Matt looks pretty good. You feeling pretty good, Matt?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
You know, he's a man. I feel like this looks like a man who's going places. Stacy, on the other hand, I don't know. What do you think Stacy's thinking?
That was interesting, but at least First Bank of Nowhere has my back.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Let's try one more scene. Okay, this is another scene where Stacy's a real customer, and this is another scene where hopefully Matt will follow policy. Stacy?
Okay, Stacy calls the First Bank of Nowhere.
Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, I need the balance on my checking account.
Sure, I'd love to help you with that. But first, for your protection, I'm going to need to ask you a few questions just to verify who I'm speaking with. Can I get your account number, please?
Sure, it's 11223344.
Alrighty, and can you tell me the date of your last deposit?
It was last Friday.
Okay, and about how much was that deposit for?
I don't know. My husband reconciles our account.
Okay, could you tell me where the deposit came from?
Yeah, it came from Flora Plumbing.
Okay, and additionally, I see that you wrote a check for more than $1,000 in the past week, and it was to an individual. Can you say who that it was written to?
Are you talking about the $1,200 check to Mary Maid?
No, I am showing that a couple of weeks ago. I'm talking about a check that was written within the past week.
I know my husband works with this one guy. I just can't remember his name.
Well, ma'am, I do apologize, but as you can tell, I'm having a hard time confirming your identity. Is there a chance that I can call you back at the phone number that we've got listed on file?
Can you tell me which phone number you have?
I'm afraid I'm not allowed to give out that information to somebody that hasn't been authenticated. I can tell you that it is a local cell phone prefix. Would that be your number?
Well, my cell phone number is 555-1212.
Uh, okay, unfortunately, that's not the number that we have on file for you. Would you mind coming into a branch with your identification to get your account information?
No, I don't mind. I can come in today. How late are you guys open?
We're open until 5 p.m.
Well, holy cow, we're going to have somebody come into the branch. I don't know. Did that come off as rude to you, Stacy?
No, not at all.
And I really like, actually, we started off answering the questions a little bit right, but boy, that was an easy question. When was the last deposit? Last Friday is a real easy, probably a 40%, if not a 50% chance of guessing. But then, Stacy was not able to answer the rest of the out of wallet questions. And so we did try the last resort, number one, which is to call back at the number on file. And when that didn't work in this particular institution, Matt, as the teller, did not have to escalate to the supervisor unless Stacy seemed upset, and she didn't. And so I'm feeling like this is a good scene that addresses a lot of the issues. Of course, additional scenes that might need to be exercised on any institution would be, a loan customer calling that doesn't have the deposit account, that sort of thing. Matt definitely looks like somebody who's going somewhere. Good job, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
And before I forget, I definitely appreciate you joining the webinar today, and I again thank you for volunteering. And definitely, we need to get that lunch in sometime this year.
Oh, sure. Just get at me on Slack and we'll work it out.
And so, what you got to realize is, what's the customer thinking about in this kind of a situation, Stacy?
Wow, life in the 21st century. Oh, well, at least the First Bank of Nowhere has my back.
Good job, Matt. Good job, Matt. That's what we want the customer to be thinking. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, no, 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 that's not the way it works. The customer is never that nice. And I understand that. We agree with you. Hopefully, 30%, 40%, 50% of your customers are going to walk away, thinking that you have their back. But you're right, especially at first, we're going to have to protect our customers and protect our bank from our customers gathering the wrong opinion about us. So we need to work on that a little bit. And so we're going to try to do some, scenes where we can exercise what it should look like when it comes to the customers that are a little bit irritated with us. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of pick up with a new, scene. But Matt, I'd like to just kind of pick up where we left off, where you're saying, hey, that's not the number we have on file. Go for it, Matt.
That's not the number we have on file. Would you mind coming into a branch with your ID to get your account information?
Really? You actually want me to come into the branch?
Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am, but for your protection, we need to know who you are before we can provide confidential information.
Well, why do you even have a phone then? If I can't call the bank to get information, what good are you? Why, I oughta pow.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you like to talk to my supervisor?
No, but if I have to come into the branch, I will be doing so to close my account.
Well, well. We don't really know if it was Stacy that's on the other end. That's the reason why we're asking her to come into the branch. But Matt, you followed policy. You're following policy. And I feel like this is probably more what you're going to run into than the Stacy's over here on this slide that are like, oh wow, at least they have my back, right? At least at first. What we are needing to also realize, though, is that this is by guidance, this is by regulation. So all of our competitors, all the banks in the industry are eventually going to be getting around to making sure that we're asking out of wallet questions. And so our customers are going to be getting used to this. But what I really like that you did here, Matt, was you achieved two important goals whenever we run into a situation where the customer is upset about our controls, because that's really what we're talking about here. Our customer does not like our controls. And so the first thing you did is you asked her to come into the branch. So you're planting that seed. Really, it's the supervisor we hope that's going to get her to come into the branch, which is the second goal. And that is, getting the customer to talk to our supervisor, and escalating is what we call it, to our supervisor. So the main thing to remember is that your job is not to argue with the customers. Your job isn't even to explain why the controls exist. Your job is to just politely explain what our controls are, and using those three little words for your information. I don't know if you saw how Matt used those, and he said for your protection, right? But those three little words, I feel like softened the blow when he said you're going to need to come into the branch, but then we need to escalate to our supervisor. And then your supervisor will close on the process of trying to get them to come into the branch. Your supervisor will know ways we can set up controls that'll make it easy for the customer to authenticate the next time they call into the branch, that sort of thing. But what we always have to remember is that if the person calling us doesn't want to come into the branch, chances are it's because they're a bad guy. It's because they're a nosy neighbor. It's because they're, the evil sister or whatever, who's trying to find information that they're not supposed to receive from you, somebody who's in the business of protecting our customers. Let's try a new scene now where we're trying to exercise some of the things that we've learned. Matt?
Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, I need the balance on my checking account.
Okay, sure. What's your account number?
My account number is 123456.
Okay. And what's your name?
Stacy Hadaway.
Okay. And what are the last four digits of your social security number?
I don't have my card.
Okay. What's your birth date?
My birthday is January 30th, 1965.
Okay. What is your address?
It's 1234 Maple Drive, and that's in Lafayette, Indiana, 47905.
Excellent. Your account balance is
Matt,
1,002.
Matt, I'm sorry, I can't. Matt,
Uh,
what are
uh,
you doing?
oh, well, I am playing a role here, Dan. I was trying to be
Oh, yeah,
the
good point,
bluster
good
bank
point.
teller.
I'm sorry, I forgot. You're not the cartoon Matt, you're the real Matt. All right, I won't get those confused anymore. Sorry about that. But what's the thing we got going on here? Let's just go back to that scene here for a little bit and kind of talk about it. Matt, you asked a lot of questions. I'm sorry, cartoon Matt. You asked a lot of questions. Okay. None of them that I can see were out of wallet questions. I mean, you're right. We think this is the customer because she had the correct answers, to most of the questions. But the last four digits of a social security number in the year 2018, the customer doesn't know the last four digits. That needs to be a real big red flag. Even if you're going to bypass, policy, if you do that, you shouldn't be doing that when there's a real big red flag. And, again, you really shouldn't be bypassing policy. It should be your supervisor that does that. So, what I wanted to really illustrate though and so Matt, I'm going to remember from now on that you're playing a role and I won't take it out on you, okay? But what we need to realize is that over time, our customers are going to see when we do give information, when we do not follow policy in a way that is going to make us look bad. Stacy, what is a good, example of how a customer could walk away from that last transaction?
Wow, that guy just gave me information where the other person wouldn't. These guys don't have their act together.
Yeah. I mean, especially given that other banks and your coworkers are following policy, when you don't follow policy, the customer walks away wondering, you know, do they know what they're doing? And when the customer loses faith in us, they start questioning everything that we do, right? So we all need to follow policy consistently. Let's go ahead and try another scene, Matt.
Okay. Thanks for calling the First Bank of Nowhere. This is Matt speaking.
Hi, I need the balance on my checking account.
Okay, sure. For your protection, though, I'll need to ask you a few questions to verify who I'm speaking with. What is your account number?
My account number is 22334455.
Okay, and what's your name?
Stacy Hadaway.
Okay, and what are the last four digits of your social security number?
I don't have my card.
You don't know the last four digits of your social security number?
No, I never memorized it.
Okay, let's see. What was the last transaction on this account?
I don't know. That's why I'm calling to make sure I don't overdraft my account.
Okay, do you remember the last place that you used your debit card?
I think I was at the gas station.
The gas station. Okay, do you know the check number you last used on this account?
No, I don't have my checkbook.
Okay, do you have direct deposit?
I do.
Okay, and let's see. About how much is that direct deposit for?
I think it's about 1,200 every other Friday.
Okay, and where does this direct deposit come from?
My place of work.
And where is that?
Why do you need to know all this information? I gave you my account number.
Ma'am, I just need to verify who I'm speaking with before I can give you any account information over the phone.
Whatever.
Okay, ma'am, since I couldn't verify you, could you please come into a branch to get your account balance? You'll just need to bring a photo ID.
Sure, I'll be in later today.
Thanks.
Okay, Matt and Cartoon Matt. I feel like you both did a great job. You asked a lot of out-of-wallet questions, and we don't know if Stacy is a customer or a fake customer because she is not able to answer some pretty basic out-of-wallet questions. I mean, we do not consider the social security number, by the way, to be an out-of-wallet question. I mean, I sometimes wonder, well, why are you even asking that question? Because it's not an out-of-wallet question. But what it occurs to me is that if you ask that question and the person that's on the other end of the phone can't answer that question, wow, what a big red flag. So I'm really glad that Matt then went in and started drilling down with other out-of-wallet questions. The goal of planting the seed that you're going to need to come into the branch and then escalating was partially achieved. I'm also even more suspicious when the person's like, yeah, sure, I'll be in later today. Because to me, that might mean that the person's planning to call another branch because the person realizes that you are following policy. Maybe a coworker at another branch isn't going to follow policy. But good job. We didn't escalate to the supervisor, but I feel like you didn't have the opportunity to. And I feel like the next step, though, from this would be what? To broadcast awareness, right, Matt? Where you let everybody, that you feel might be, susceptible to a pretext caller know that you just took this weird call where they couldn't answer some out of wallet questions. We call that broadcast awareness. It's a natural extension. It's the next thing to do if you feel uncomfortable from a call like this. And really the way you do that is you get with your supervisor, you explain what just happened, and then you and your supervisor will determine how to, go about making sure the appropriate people are aware of somebody out there making strange calls. Matt, can you think of maybe one last resort response? I can think of two that you could have implemented in this scene in order to authenticate the customer. Any ideas there?
Uh, yeah, I would have offered to try to call them back at a phone number that we had on file for them.
Ah, yes. We call that the callback control, right? So by calling back to a number that we have on file, we are authenticating them. It's almost like a what you have, what you know authentication. So I love that answer, Matt. Good job. Um, I would like to suggest that there is also another way you can, because just so you know, I mean, a lot of times people are, they won't have a legitimate phone number you can call them at. Maybe they're at their place of employment and they got a new job since the last time they updated their profile at the bank. So when we run into that, there still is one more last resort response we can implement before we call them into the bank. I call it the multiple choice question. And this next part two of scene 7 is going to be kind of a weird twist on that. It's going to start off where, Matt is asking where the direct deposit comes from, but Matt's going to take a different approach towards trying to determine whether Stacy truly is a customer. Matt?
Okay, where does the direct deposit come from?
My place of work.
Oh, okay, and where is that?
I work at Acme.
Okay, I was afraid of that. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but that's just not going to make a good authentication question. Let me try a multiple choice question. I see that you have a loan on file. Is it for a Volkswagen, a Cadillac, or a Corvette?
Sir, are you looking at the right file? My auto loan is for a Dodge Durango.
Oh, good. That's exactly what we have on file, ma'am. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience. See, I can go ahead and answer your questions now, but perhaps next time you're in the branch, you would set up a passcode to have on file so that we don't have to go through this again.
Oh, great. Like I really need another thing to remember.
Yes, I know. That is one of the downfalls of technology these days. Let's see. It looks like your balance is
Got
$6.66.
it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, it looks like Stacy's going to need to find some more money to put into her account there. And Matt, good job. What Matt did there is he asked a multiple choice question for which the answers he provided were all the wrong answers. So when Stacy came back and said, well, wait a minute here, I don't have a car, I don't have a Volkswagen. Now we know, after all those other questions Stacy couldn't answer, Stacy really doesn't know the last 4 digits of her social security number. And, probably won't remember the passcode that she sets up at the bank as well, but that's okay. We can let her know what her balance is because she was able to answer an out of wallet question correctly. Now, one of the things we're starting to notice as we test our clients is that our clients are using out of wallet questions, but they're not very good out of wallet questions. Now, this is really more of a metaphorical question here. We don't see our clients, asking this question. But think about it. There's two things wrong with this question. The first one is that it's kind of a 50-50 answer. I mean, if you were to try to ask this question, to me, it must be because you know that the customer must be on a gravel road. And so, if the customer says black, well, hey, then we caught them in not knowing the right answer to the question, and we can feel confident in asking them to come into the branch. 50-50 is not a very good percentile. It's too easy to guess. I mean, think about it. We can call, 2 people and get the information we're looking for if everybody's relying on 50-50 questions. Meanwhile, we're putting the answer right in the question. We got to be careful there. We got to be careful not to give the customer information about the account in order to ask them out of wallet questions, right? And so we've all, this is not easy. This is not easy. But some examples of out of wallet questions include, what location did you open your account at? We're seeing this. Stacy, you're seeing this a lot, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and it becomes real easy for Stacy to guess, because even if you had 5 branches, if she guessed the right branch, that's a 25% likelihood that she can do that. There's a 25% probability that she can, or a 20% probability that she can guess the branch if there's 5 branches. But more importantly, if she already knows what your address is or what the victim's address is, that's going to make it even easier. We are getting a lot of findings in our pretext calling by guessing addresses. Likewise, if you're asking what your mother's maiden name is, yes, that is a question that usually we can't find the answer in a stolen, wallet or purse, but we can find it on Facebook pretty easy, right? So it's not a good out of wallet question. Your email address, your cell phone number, those are easily Googled questions. And so even though they are truly out of wallet questions, if you ask them, you should ask other out of wallet questions where the answers can only be found in your bank's information system. That's really what we're talking about here. But even if the answer is in your bank's information system, you've got to be careful to not have those 50-50 questions. And really with this first question, what other accounts do you have? If your bank has a Christmas club, well, hey, now they can, guess one of 3, not one of 2. 33% probability is way too high. We need to get it way below that. Is there another signer on your account? It's usually just one of 2 spouses, right? So that's a 50-50 question. If we've recognized that some people will, especially if Stacy is sounding old when she's making her pretext calls, they'll ask, do you use online banking? That's a 50-50 question. It's not good enough. It's too easy for the bad guys to answer that question correctly. And then questions that, there's an easy out, well, can you go to your online? Oh, my internet's down. Those questions, we might try, but we're going to run into some resistance. It's too easy to get out of answering those questions. So Matt and Stacy, I feel like you did a really good job of playing those roles. It's not easy to play those roles, is what Matt and Stacy will tell everybody. It's something that we're hoping you can start doing until you feel confident in your ability to ask out of wallet questions. But Matt and Stacy, thank you very much.
Let's just summarize by saying we realize that it's easier said than done. We realize that some of your customers are going to be frustrated, but we also know that they were frustrated the first time, they had to use strong passwords on their internet banking system. But once they realized it was for their protection, they learned how to use strong passwords. And so we believe you're going to have to practice in order to learn the best way for you. But know that when we find a bank that has issues with asking out of wallet questions, that's kind of a precursor of, hey, there's bigger issues in your awareness training program. It's easy to test pretext calling. It's easy to, be on the radar if you're not following that procedure. But if we don't know how to ask out of wallet questions, what other controls that we're supposed to implement do we not know how to use? Meanwhile, after time, we believe your customers will get used to this. I know I'm running into this when I try calling my institutions for information. Stacy, have you run into this before where, maybe the credit card company or the company we deal with, the bank we're dealing with are asking out of wallet questions?
Yes, definitely.
And
Yeah.
so it is a control that's going to become more and more accepted by your customers. We feel like there'll be a tipping point where your customers will start wondering why you didn't properly authenticate them if they call asking for information. And I also know the loan officer always ends up, and for good reason, saying, well, what about the customer? I'm working with the guy all day long. I can see, confirming his identity maybe on the first call, but do I have to confirm it every single time the guy calls me back? And our answer to that is, first of all, let's check the policy. Maybe the financial institution already has a policy about that. But we believe that your charged with a lot more important judgments to make as a loan officer. So we believe that your judgment is best in that type of situation, but we still need you to know how to ask out of wallet questions for that loan customer that calls you 3 years later and you don't recognize their voice. And I guess the way I'd like to leave it is that in every instance of when you're supposed to enforce controls that inconvenience our customers, and I'll grant you out of wallet questions are definitely one of those instances. But your job is, instead of just being polite, to politely explain procedure. When I'm involved in social engineering attacks, it's usually physical breach attempts against larger organizations. And when I succeed, the person that I just, made look bad in our report, unfortunately, will always say, I was just trying to be polite. That's not your job. Your job is to politely explain procedure and then follow those procedures. So I'd like to thank you for spending this time watching this movie with us. I hope that if you are supposed to provide a code to your information security officer or whomever, you saw that was when we introduced Matt and Joe and Stacy in the movie. You can go back to that if you need to get that code. So thank you, everybody.
When you view an InfoText webinar or movie, you do so with 4 caveats. First, you're agreeing to the terms posted at the web page listed on this slide. Second, our lawyers want you to know that what InfoText presents is often time-dated or about new trends, regulations, or guidance, and therefore we cannot provide this material with any warranty whatsoever. Thirdly, material provided with InfoText webinars and movies is copyrighted. You keep the copyright to material customized to your organization, but InfoText reserves the right to use the material in other engagements and boilerplates. See our transfer of copyright agreement at the web page listed in this slide. Finally, those who view our webinars or movies may be added to an email mailing list. If you do not wish to receive notice of additional educational opportunities, please accept our apologies and please opt out at the web page shown on this slide.